Okay, legal and ethical frameworks, presentation A. Okay, so identify issues involved in working with individual differences, personal biases, and value system. I play the role of a devout Christian counselor who believes that homosexuality is wrong. I have been referred a 17-year-old boy who has just come out to his parents, and he is being bullied at school. His relationship with his family has deteriorated, and he has, especially with his father, and he has been prescribed antidepressants given that he is depressed and is suicidal. Now, there's a direct conflict of interest between my value systems and what the boy is going through. The fact that he has come out and the fact that I believe that homosexuality is wrong is in direct conflict of interest there. But in saying that, though, he is an individual and needs to be treated and counseled with the same rights as anybody else, regardless of what circumstances he might be coming under. Some of the issues that relate to the fact that he has different value system to me could be that I could try and influence his goals and outcomes, and I need to be very vigilant, aware that the outcomes he's setting for himself do not reflect what I believe. He needs to be able to set goals and outcomes that reflect his own circumstances, reflect what he is going through, as opposed to what I believe is appropriate, what I believe is acceptable, and what I believe will actually work in his favor. He needs to actually know he needs to set them for himself. Now, some of the strategies for resolving and minimizing the impact of individual differences, personal biases, and value system. Now, the code of ethics for counselors clearly states that every person is entitled to a prejudice-free, bias-free service. It also states that every individual is entitled to have a service that is tailored especially for them, so an individually tailored service. And also every person needs to feel that they're not being judged for their values and their morals and their ideas. So in saying that, though, so the code of ethics is very strong as to what a person can receive from a counselor. So some of the strategies is to be aware of this and also be aware of what these differences are between my values and what my clients are bringing in. And how I'm feeling throughout this whole thing. Now, obviously, going through with such a direct conflict of interest, there will be feelings that will be coming up. I need to be completely vigilant about it the whole time, making notes of it and making sure that I am aware of it. The other thing to do is to try and understand this person for who he is. So instead of looking at James as a homosexual or a person who's a homosexual who's come out, I need to look at James as an individual whose relationship has deteriorated with his family, who is being bullied, and who is entitled to the same rights as everybody else. Just because his value systems are different from mine does not mean to say that he deserves any less or deserves more. He deserves the same amount of care and consideration that I would give any other person approaching me for counseling. The other thing is to try and understand where he's coming from. So understanding that this person is coming from a place of hurt, that he's coming from somewhere where he's coming from a place of not being accepted. So understanding these individual circumstances and making sure that I apply that to him as an individual and not as someone who with this sexuality rather. The other thing is making appropriate decisions and not projecting on him my own decisions, not saying, well, if you weren't doing this, then you wouldn't be going through that. Understanding that his individual decisions are his and he needs to lead his life according to that, but in saying that he needs to be supported through that system. The other thing is understanding what his individual goals and outcomes are for his life. I think each person has a different set of goals and outcomes that they would like to live out, and regardless of who they are. So understanding what they are and trying to tailor my service so that he is able to get the best out of that. Another thing I would do, another strategy for me is to access and completely always evaluate his outcomes, making sure that I haven't pushed any of my biases onto him. I haven't made sure that, to make sure that I haven't actually said to him, well, maybe if you try this, it'll be better. Maybe make suggestions, but not I should make sure that my suggestions don't come from a place of prejudice and don't come from a place of where I would lead my life a certain way. He needs to be able to do that himself. I need to personally reflect on the achievements he's received. I need to be sure that they align to what he wants in his life. And not my values. And that I'm not influencing him in any way that is more aligned to my lifestyle. The other strategy I can use is feedback. So what I need to do is get feedback from James after each and every session, after each and every goal is set, to make sure that the goals he's setting, the outcomes he's setting, and that the session actually followed what he wanted and not what I believed was necessary for him, what I believed was appropriate for him, that he was comfortable within the boundaries that I was setting, and he was able to set his own boundaries and say, well, actually this is not where I want to go because it's not aligned to what I believe. The feedback from him will also be very useful for me to be able to check myself, check that I'm actually careful and I'm actually vigilant about what I'm saying to him and how the session is actually being guided, so that I'm actually guiding him in an ethical and correct way, as opposed to a way that's biased or value system, or influencing him with a value system that has no alignment to who he is or what he wants to be. The other thing that I need to do is constantly ask him for feedback to make sure that he actually feels that the level of service that I'm offering is appropriate for him, and that it is not he's not feeling like he needs something more. If he does, then I need to refer him on to somebody else. So I need to be well aware of my limitations, and if necessary, maybe even talk to my peers and get some supervision, so that I'm able to give him a service that's tailored to him, that will give him the most fulfillment in achieving his goals and outcomes.